Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Who Are You podcast. I'm your host, Connor Overbay. If this is your first time checking out the podcast, welcome, welcome. Make sure you guys give us a follow on all of our social media. It's going to be at Who Are You Pod for everything. You guys will see some behind-the-scene clips, little clips from the show, and really just a mix of, the day-to-day life with me and Shannon. Also, if you guys are checking us out on the social media, give us a subscribe on the YouTube as well. The YouTube subscribership is growing, and we're very thankful for our community to be growing. It's going to be Who Are You podcast, and you guys will be able to find us on there. But today, I'm sitting down with a very, very special guest. A gentleman that actually hit me up from a couple episodes of us talking about food and restaurants, and that Shaq Maui clip went crazy, guys. Everybody was really checking it out. Today, I'm sitting down with Mr. Erik Osol, right? Yep. I got it right. We were talking about it before. But welcome to the podcast, the owner of McFLAMINGO's, and really a gentleman of many talents from what I've seen, many different restaurants as well. So welcome to the podcast. Before we get started, if you want to let everybody know where they can follow you on social media, anything you want to promote at the beginning here? At
McFLAMINGO FL or McFLAMINGO.com. Those are the best ways to find us. I'm Chef Erik Osol on Instagram. That's probably the best way to go, I think.
Sounds good, man. I say, and like I said, I appreciate.
I'm an older person, so I'm not totally fluent with all the jive.
Hey, I mean, you're more of a professional in other things, so it's totally fine not to be all the way into the social media. And you reached out to me from the episode where I sat down with the Fat Boy Fried Rice guys, and they actually shouted you out.
Those are some good kids, man. They worked really hard for me and showed a lot of promise and showed that they cared about just making things taste delicious, and so I did my best to try to point them in a good direction.
Were they always that way, or did it take a little bit of training?
Most people when they have it, and it's just about care, right?
I totally agree.
People say they can't cook, but really they just don't care to cook.
Yeah, I totally agree. So it's a lot of things, especially in today's world. You go on social media or you can just Google it. You can find a recipe for anything that you're wanting to make. It's just more of if you're willing to take the time to prep and do all this other stuff. And a lot of things that you see that look so beautiful on social media can take 30 minutes if you really just take the time.
Or faster.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Or faster if you know what you're doing.
Yeah, I totally agree.
You just got to watch it all the way, You don't just set it and forget it like Popeil's pasta maker. Mm-hmm. You're not young enough. I mean, you're not old enough to remember that, but that was one of those infomercial things back in the day.
I remember some infomercials. Like you said, maybe a little too old for me, but I remember.
Set it and forget it. That was the idea, and people love that idea. You just thought, just stick it in the oven. It'll be done someday. But, if you care about it, you should be watching it and taking care of it like a baby.
I totally agree. And, like a nice home-cooked meal, it tastes so much better. It makes you feel different as well. I feel like that's one of the great equalizers, to sit down and have a meal with someone, whether it's a friend, a colleague, or something. Kind of is a special thing that a lot of people just seem to pass over nowadays.
Yeah, I would say that, that's what McFLAMINGO is definitely about in terms of, how we approach food. So we cook everything to order, so we don't have any heating tables with food already cooked in them. We don't have a Chipotle style line or the idea of Subway where you start at one end and finish at the other. We get tickets, we get orders, we cook your food to order, and we have real people there, real live human beings that need money and need to pay bills, but also create a community. And I think that's the most important thing these days. And you look at some of the most successful restaurants in Jacksonville, and that's what you see. The Grishels and their mini restaurant empire, they have millions of kids and adults working for them. And they're all good people, and they're all trying real hard every day. At the club, we have, just hundreds of people that come every day and try to do their best, and the club being the Ponte Vedra Inn Club, and really, any restaurant that's wants to make a difference has to have people there that want to make a difference, and I just the reason I bring this up is because everybody talks about AI these days. Everybody talks about everybody's going to lose their job to AI. And, I I kind of feel like we won't, as long as we make sure that we're creating communities when we do these things, and that we have people to come in and see, work hard. And, we make mistakes, because we're human. And sometimes mistakes aren't that good, and sometimes they're delicious. So, you kind of have to roll with it,
No, I totally agree with you. And I never worked in fine dining or anything like that, but I did grow up in the restaurant industry. Those were most of my first jobs, really. I say I've told this story a bunch of times, but the way me and Shannon met, we're working through Five Guys Burgers and Fries.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Very good.
I worked my way up from, being a cashier at 15, 16 years old, all the way to being a key holder, store manager, and being able to take over restaurants and do my thing there.
And if you listen to there's a great podcast on the Five Guys brand, and I think it's on NPR, and it's about, how did they do it or something. And truthfully, that's how Five Guys did it to begin with. It's a family thing, and, everybody came and worked hard and tried to serve the best food they could. So, people these days, they want to, get upset about how long things take or how expensive things are. But, if you want someone who's going to dedicate a portion of their life to come out and make your food for you, how much is that worth? I mean, you're basically paying for that person's, existence.
No, I agree. And also their knowledge, their, labor of love to create you a meal that's going to taste good. And then obviously in like the McFLAMINGO side of things, is healthy for you. It's not,
the healthy tag is a scary one in Northeast Florida, because, there's a certain political climate that thinks, we're being soft or woke or something with that. But really, it's just we make good food.
Yeah.
I happen to like broccoli, right? And we make a chicken and broccoli on rice that is inspired by Hainanese chicken, and it's delicious, right? But it has broccoli on it.
Oh, no.
So, in Jacksonville, if it doesn't also include ranch dressing, you start to get in trouble,
You don't have ranch?
So, and we actually do have a ranch dressing. We have an almond ranch dressing.
Okay.
So there's no dairy in it, but it's, we just try to give people what we call real food.
Yeah.
So you come to McFLAMINGO, we give you large portions, and we give you the stuff that matters, right? The same piece of fish, if you go to some restaurants, will give you French fries that cost 10 cents. We're giving you farm-raised lettuce from Reparation Earth, like a local farm where you got a couple that spends their day trying to create lettuce for people, right? That's insane. Whoever comes up with the idea of hey, I'm going to grow lettuce. This guy does it, and thank God he does it, because we use his lettuce, and it's better than almost anybody else's lettuce, right?
That is an interesting business model to set out there and do that.
And I think that's what life's about. Crazy people like yourself who have your podcast that you're doing, which is something that you clearly are interested in and love and want to continue throughout your life in some form or fashion, and crazy people like myself who spent the last 30 years, at a stove, working hard, looking at the food, watching it cook, smelling it, listening to it. And, I don't know. It's just, I just think that, not enough credit's given to just regular people working hard to make other people's day better.
I thoroughly agree. And as I was growing up, being young and naive and not knowing what really goes into it, watching my mom cook and seeing all the different stuff that she, would put together, because she wasn't just throwing dino nuggets in the thing. Some nights she did, which I totally respect, especially as you get older.
There's a night for dino nuggets.
There is.
Sure.
There 100% is. Another person that helped me gain respect for the culinary arts was Anthony Bourdain.
Of course. It's really sad. It definitely made me cry that day when he died.
Yeah, because I forgot, there was a book or something that he wrote. It was his New York Times bestseller, one of his first ones. And getting to see that, and then obviously his TV show, which was a massive success. A lot of people watched it. And showing, there's a story behind the food. The people who, picked the vegetables, like you were talking about the lettuce, the people who took the time to come up with a recipe or put it together or mixed and mashed all these things into a beautiful symphony of flavor that really became a thing. And it kind of showed me, I'm like, wow, there's a lot more into food than it's just you eating and that's it.
Food is so deep in just history and information, and even like the etymology of the words, why is this food called this, and you find out it's because it traveled from Mesopotamia all the way through northern China down into Korea, right? And so there's just so many things like that a lot of people just don't know, right? And just like art, if you don't know about it, it's hard to appreciate it, fully. But food is lucky in that if it tastes good, it tastes good.
It works.
You know what I mean?
I totally agree.
It's kind of like a good song, right? And a good song, nobody knows why they're good songs, but when it's a good song, you're like, oh, wow, that's a good song.
I totally agree.
You feel it, and everybody feels it. It makes people cry, makes people dance. Same thing with food. When we're an entirely gluten-free restaurant, and that's one of those other things that you got to be careful saying, because people are like, oh, you don't have bread. Oh, you don't. We have amazing bread. It's just gluten-free.
Yeah,
it tastes delicious. But I lost track here.
You're fine. You're fine.
But serving gluten-free stuff is something where you don't have. It's not a sacrifice, right? Like you're just not defaulting towards putting it on regular bread, or having breadcrumbs all over your restaurant, right? Like, or a deep fryer per se, like having we just throw flour in it, right? Like when I brought a gluten-free fryer to the Ponte Vedra Inn Club as well, and when this person who had celiac disease ate a crab fritter, she said basically, I haven't eaten a French fry in 20 years, let alone a crab fritter. It almost brought tears to her eyes. So the thing about food is you can make it any way you want as long as it tastes good. But when you sort of leave room for more people to come enjoy your stuff, I feel like that's a good thing. And we let people make tons of changes to our menu. Sometimes it's crazy and it makes our life miserable, right? Like, because we have so many changes, so I want this, I want that, I want extra this, I want, it's like we have 3,000 menus sometimes. But,
yeah.
And everybody from business school and from the restaurant industry would tell you why are you doing that? That's insane. Like your menu should be smaller. You're not going to make any money. You're selling too expensive lettuce. Nobody knows. And one guy from a food distribution company told me, "Oh, all your items, the names of them on your menu, they need to be regular English that everybody knows what they are." And it's like, I'd never heard something like that in my entire life. And I just was thinking that's ridiculous, right? Like, because the words tell a story, right? And it goes back to what I was saying before about, an ingredient traveling the world. Like aioli, right? Aioli is something, it's also known as toum in the Middle East.
I didn't know that. Okay.
And that's something that we marinate our chicken with. And toum is this, otherwise known as garlic whip, right? If I just said, the fact is it came all the way around the Mediterranean and then went all the way up through Spain into, northern Spain and southern France. And, like usual, the French made it a little more palatable for their palates, right? And they added egg and they made it all this stuff so it wasn't so strong. But they still sell real aioli in northern Spain. So it's interesting.
No, it definitely is. It's amazing to see, like we were talking about the Bourdain side, like seeing all the different places where food comes from and what is considered food and what is not considered food. Some countries, they eat bugs. Some countries, they, like as you were saying, gluten free, or they don't eat meat. So there's other options of things that come up for that. And, what you're doing as well is you're giving people options, because there's a lot of people who, you were saying, gluten-free, don't eat these certain things. That gives them an option that they know they can go to that restaurant and either follow the way they want to eat or follow their dietary restrictions so they don't feel ill every time they eat food. So I think
we basically started from sort of like a vegan, gluten-free mindset, and then built from there. So a lot of times people think of center of the plate. So they think of like it's a steak and it sells for this much money, and everything else, the cost doesn't really matter.
Okay.
Instead, we're like, hey, we're going to throw as much money into everything else, and then there are people that want fish, there are people that want chicken, and okay, we'll throw some shrimp in there too, and but we don't sell pork, we don't sell beef, and I think what we sell our proteins with is, like, you could take the proteins away, and for the most part, it would be just as delicious and an amazing dish. Whereas if you take the steak away from steak, potatoes, and peas, I mean, I love mashed potatoes and peas, but, it's not exactly a full meal.
A little limited on the side there. No, I totally understand. So to get into you a little bit, obviously I can hear the passion in your voice when it comes to food and, what you guys are doing. How did you get in, where did you start in the restaurant industry? You obviously said you worked your way up. What was maybe your first restaurant job or,
Well, that's an interesting thing to bring up, because I just talked to a young lady about, joining the culinary world and joining the kitchen. And she was sort of weighing whether or not that would be a good choice for her. And I can tell you, I've spent more than 10,000 hours doing this. And I've missed holidays, and I've missed moments in my family's life, and I, probably have, I've just done a lot, right? I've been working in it, and when you're working it, you just work in it, and it's all consuming. But I think that, when I started, I started at a little pub down the street, and I basically did everything there. And the first thing that I fell in love with was that the female chefs would make fun of the waitresses, and the waitresses would yell back at them. And then, it got a little un-PC, it was, everybody would have been canceled, but it was hilarious because I was 16 and I was just watching it and I thought it was hilarious, right? And I love that. I love the excitement of that. And I love the back and forth banter. I love so the first thing you learn is that if you really want to be a head chef somewhere, you better have a comeback.
Oh, yeah.
You got to have a comeback. You can't just sit there and blah, 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 blah. Like, you got to have a comeback. It might not be good, but you got to try. And so that was that. And then went off to college, and I got a finance degree in art and economics and that kind of thing. And I was going to become a real human being. And then I decided to ride my bike across the country. And I rode my bike across the country, and it was called Bike Cook Cure. And I'd been working at the college, at the college restaurant where everybody takes their parents to, right? So, and she was amazing. Her name was Judy, and she's still there. Her restaurant's called Judy's, and it's in Amherst, Massachusetts. And I can definitely say she and two of her chefs, Mike and Robert, they were great. They definitely inspired me. And this other guy, Ryan, and they got me set up, and they let me be creative, and it was great. But I did that, and I decided I'd ride my bike across the country, and I'd raise money for the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. And along the way, I would stop in like big cities and talk to the local cool chef or whoever it would be, and I would take a video of them making a dish. So it's kind of similar to what you do, right?
All right. Sorry about that. And go ahead. So you said you were going across the country. You were making videos and everything.
Yeah, so I was going across the country on the bike by myself. No one was following me. And I would stay occasionally with families that had, were part of Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, or like had kids that had diabetes. And I would stay at their house. They, a few families put me up, which was really nice of them. And the rest of the time I stayed in really, ugly motels. But I took a video of everybody, and I laugh at this because I had it was like a camera, right? Like it was like a big, kind of a video camera, right? And had that. I'm taking the video, and then you'd connect it to I had a computer too, and I'd connect it to the computer, and then I'd have to go into the modem, try to use the modem to deliver it, right?
Oh, I bet that was terrible back in those days.
It never worked. It was, the,
Oh, yeah.
It never worked. And so I eventually just, sent some tapes home, and they tried to get it on the website, and they were all pixelated, and, so that part of it wasn't very successful. But the idea was a good one, but that was hard to do. But we did raise some money. And, I made it all the way to San Diego, California.
That's crazy.
And I started working at La Valencia.
Okay.
Which is this big pink hotel in La Jolla Cove. And that was fun. And that's when I had, basically I was deciding to be a chef then, right? And that's when I'm making this choice to take it seriously. And it wasn't just about, waitresses yelling at each other and, guys saying crude things and whatnot. It was about started to become about the food. And I had a fun time there. And this guy, I think his name was Luke Patterson, I think. And, he was new as the chef there. And so there were some loose ends, and, it allowed me to come into work and make pheasant stock on the fly and do some other stuff that I probably normally wouldn't have gotten my hands on. And so that was fun. And I think it's important for most people to realize that no one's going to give it to you. You got to take it. So, I think, that's what I did. I tried as much as I could to do what I wanted to do and try what I wanted to try, right? And so then, I have a wonderful wife, and she's one of the other brainchilds of McFLAMINGO, and she had met me in my 5th year at UMass, and she basically told me she would not come out to San Diego, but she would move to San Francisco. And so we then moved to San Francisco. And in San Francisco, I basically, back then you could just walk around, right, and look for a job. You show up and you're like, hey, I'll cook or whatever. And they look at you and they're like, who the hell are you? And you're like, I'm awesome. And
I'm awesome.
And they're like, yeah, right. And they put you to work doing something stupid. But, but basically I really lucked out. I got to San Francisco. I started walking around one day, and I went to, I think it was the Ritz Carlton. Okay. And the woman there, Pat, her husband, Sean, worked at restaurant Gary Danko. And the Ritz-Carlton at the time was kind of going through a change, so she was like, yeah, honey, you don't want to work here right now, but I know somewhere that needs somebody, and I'll send you down there right now. So she sent me, I got in a cab, and I went down to Gary Danko, and I told him I'd be good for him, and he said, sure, I'll pay you very little money and work you really hard, and you'll have fun. And so I did that. I did that for 5 years almost. And met amazing people. And I think, the most important thing is that when you work in when you work in a fine dining restaurant like that, and you work with people that care, almost all those people became famous or went on to become big chefs or run big organizations, and you kind of knew that those people would be successful in life because it was that type of, atmosphere, and you never wanted to let your peer down. You never wanted to be late. You never, you came early, you came early, and you would come early, and you didn't care if you were going to get paid for it. You just came because you wanted to be around food, and you wanted to, these days, the problem is these days kids will now sue you and tell you how you've taken advantage of them and blah, blah, blah. But like, I didn't care. I was getting to touch foie gras. I was getting to, stuff quails. I was getting to do all this cool stuff. Like, why should I let this kid off the street just start touching stuff that's $40 a pound?
Very true.
Right? And then pay him to do it when he has no idea what the hell he's doing. I mean, I understand both sides, but it's unfortunate that we can't do that anymore. Because nobody does it anymore because too many people actually did exploit people that way, and too many people, went through hard times. And I think, in general, my profession's always been underpaid. And so there's just a lot wrong with the restaurant industry in general. But this was 100% right. It was a great opportunity, and Gary's an amazing chef and man, and I love the guy, and I would go work there in a heartbeat if I could afford to. You know what I mean? It would be great. I would love it. I love San Francisco. I always wanted to get back, but it's just it was about just serving good food too.
Yeah.
It wasn't about crazy nouvelle molecular gastronomy. It wasn't about any of that. It was like just serve people good food, and he does, and he still does to this day. So that was a great time. Unfortunately, when I got to San Francisco, the day I moved into my apartment was 9/11.
Whoa!
So, or the day after was 9/11.
Wow!
So that was a weird time. So, we woke. My wife is from New York, so it was kind of a strange moment in time. But
it's home, yeah.
But we happened to be there, and what's funny is I'm in finance. I was wanting to be in finance. I got a finance degree, but here I am as a cook, not making much money, but I wasn't in the Twin Towers at one of those finance firms. I would be dead, right? So and also I wasn't in New York City at that time, which is, where is kind of where you go if you're going to be in finance, right? Mm-hmm. So it's kind of funny how those things happen, because then, to jump forward, I went to Indonesia for a minute. I worked at a place called Nihiwatu, which is this amazing eco resort that now is like one of the best resorts in the world. But when I went there 20 years ago, it was kind of more, it was really nice. It was good, but it wasn't quite what it is now.
Understandable.
I mean, just because it's homegrown. Claude Graves is the guy who did it, and his wife Petra, and they literally went and did animal sacrifices with the village leaders to get the land and stuff like that, right? And,
wow!
And it's on this amazing wave, a surfing wave called Aki's Left,
mm-hmm.
So I surfed, and it was amazing. I did a lot of surfing in California.
That's really cool. Okay.
And I loved it. Unfortunately, I don't get to do it as much here because the waves aren't quite as good. But,
you're talking about our little ripples that we have at the beach here?
And I'm also overweight, so I need bigger waves to push me. But it was San Francisco was great. And
how'd you end up here of all places?
Yeah, so I left San Francisco. My wife and I went to Italy, and we lived there I lived there for 4 months. She lived there for 6 because she was in this master's program. And,
okay.
And I was just sort of a bum, and I was hanging out, and finally it ran out of all my money, and I only had enough money to get a €2 mortadella sandwich, which was just like bread with mortadella on it. Mm-hmm. At that point, I was like, it's time to go. So I had to go home, and I start making money. That's what I did. But my wife and I ended up in coming home and moving back to New York. And I spent a decade there, and that's where I had my children, or that's where I had both my children. And, you know, I worked for an amazing restaurant there called Casamono. And, you know, it was just, it was a Mario Batali restaurant, but it wasn't really. It was, you know, he was an investor, but it was really Andy Nusser, and he was an amazing guy. And I worked there only for I think it was 10 months. And I just wish I could take that and put it wherever I go in life and work that restaurant. It was so fun. It was just three of us. It's 24 seats. It's right on the corner on 17th and Irving. I worked with this great, the sous chef. His name's Anthony Sasso. He's amazing. They had since got Michelin stars and stuff. And
wow.
And it was like you just felt like you're part of New York City. And so my first job in New York City, I just felt like I was part of it, the hustle and bustle, because you're right at the corner of 17th and Irving. You can see the people walking by. It's ceiling or floor to ceiling windows, and it's a small little box, and it's kind of dark. It's just got the lighting where the chefs are working, and then everybody else is kind of candle lit.
That's pretty cool.
And that's one side of the square, and on the other side of the square is the wine bar. And just you know, and that's the thing that's kind of missing, you know, a lot of times is just a amazing service staff, right? They when you have truly amazing serving staff, it makes a difference, right? And Gary Danko is the best service in the country. Casamono, those guys, the waiters that waited there, and the bar backs and the wine tenders, they just had so much knowledge and just knew so much, and it's it was just so inspiring, right? And we're making amazing foods, sweetbreads, and you know, what else? We made razor clams and sweetbreads and fideos, and it was a Spanish restaurant, so sepia and little baby pulpo octopus, right? It was just the food just tasted really good. Andy, he just when he makes the food, it's got a lot of acidity. It's got oil. It's got salt. It's big flavors. And it hits you, and it just, you know, it really made me appreciate Spain and appreciate that type of food. And it's funny because he's doing this, and at the same time, molecular gastronomy was a big thing, the Ferran Adria days, right? And he wasn't doing molecular gastronomy, but what he was doing was, you know, in my opinion, tastes way better than spherical balls of, you know,
whatever it is,
whatever the hell it is. But so it's just really good food, and it's just another example of just serve really good food, serve real food, really good food, big flavor, salt, fat, acidity, you know, and it was great, and I could do that forever. But then, everything in life, things change, and my wife became pregnant, and now I couldn't just make $11.50 an hour. I had to actually become a real man and make real money. So
how things change sometimes.
Yeah. So I was like, oh man, this is crazy. So I saw an ad for a restaurant that was opening in Midtown, on 27th and 5th Avenue, 27th, and it's called. And it was being opened by the Massoud brothers, Philippe and Alec Massoud, and they are amazing guys, and were taking on this huge undertaking, which was opening a 270-seat, high-end Eastern Mediterranean Lebanese restaurant, basically. You don't want to call it Lebanese because it makes everybody mad because. Oh, that's my cuisine or my cuisine, right? You keep it Eastern Mediterranean.
Heard that.
Everybody can go and not feel like you're stealing, But they opened this amazing place. I was his exec sous chef at the time. They paid me $60,000, and then I worked really hard, and and we opened the night my daughter was basically born, and I was there for that, so I didn't miss that. But I missed the opening night, but I was there for the mock opening night the night before. But it was terrifying because it's a new job. I have a new daughter that I have to pay for, and and like it's a new venture all around, right? Like, are we going to be successful? Who knows, right? It's terrifying. And I think as employees, we also underestimate how terrifying it is for the bosses and for the owners, and everybody sort of is like, oh, they owe me this, and he's not paying me enough, and they're so rich or whatever. Like, they're always like that way with owners, right? Yeah, but I can tell you right now, having spent countless hours with Philippe, I know he was terrified. I know when it was every 2 weeks when he had to pay the salaries, he was like, oh, geez, where am I going to get this money? And basically, we opened in November, and in, I think it was like January or something, all the people are coming out of Lehman Brothers with their boxes in their hands, and the financial crisis is happening. And so an entire, once again, group of finance people are all fired with no jobs. Thank God I didn't go into finance, right?
Sounds like it. I was like,
right?
It sounds like you just keep getting signs right now.
In college, Arthur Andersen, big accounting firm, had all their banners all over the School of Management. Oh yeah, come work for Arthur Andersen, right? And all those savvy young kids were like, I kind of was a misfit like that. I was cooking, and I wanted to, I liked food, and I didn't pay attention to that, even though I was going to finance, right, school or whatever, and school of management. But all those other kids were like, I've got to get an internship, and they're like practicing, and they're wearing suits and everything, and I wasn't doing any of that. But I now think about some of these kids that must have gone on to Arthur Andersen, literally, and then, Enron happened. And Arthur Andersen went out of business. So, it's funny. Like, people tell you, oh, everything goes out of business in the restaurant industry. The failure rate is so high, and like all this kind of stuff. And some of the largest failures, and that I've seen have all been, these real white collar, expensive, people that that have real jobs and real lives and making big money. So I don't know, but I somehow I lucked out through all that, and I was a low paid, very happy cook. So, what was crazy though is that at Lily, all of a sudden here we are going, oh geez, now how are we going to make it? Right. So like the 40 hours goes into, 80 or 100 hours a week. I'm making bread. I'm cleaning dishes. I'm, doing everything, right? Just because we got to, some people had to be let go. Some people just automatically quit anyways because it's an opening and nobody stays necessarily for an opening afterwards. So it was chaos, and somehow we made it through. And I mean, really, it's just Philippe and Alec, just amazing business guys too. Like just always on it, always thinking about systems and business and organization, and just like truly caring individuals too. Even though they worked me to the bone, they were caring individuals that would do anything for you if something happened in your life and you needed help or something like that. And I've seen them be very generous to a lot of people. So it was a great time, and I was there for 5 years, and finally I just was exhausted and time for something new. And luckily it sort of came at the same time. My wife was working a good job, and my son was born, and so I was able to sort of take a paternity leave, so to speak, and be with my young son through a period of walking him to to school in Brooklyn, doing that thing and hanging out in the I was one of those dads hanging out in the in the playground with your kid running around, and it'd be, and you'd go to the playground. There'd be other dads there that had weird jobs like you. You know what I mean? Like there was this one dad. He was like the drummer for Guster, and I got to know him. And Brooklyn was cool because like everybody was cool, right? Like everybody had like a really cool job. They were like artists or musicians or chefs, or just like everybody was like creative, and like just our friend is like this. Our other friend was this like famous like sculpture artist who, made sculptures of like human looking like things with like made out of hides of animals. And we just said, it's just amazing people around us. And Brooklyn was really fun. I love Manhattan, and I loved all that stuff. And but it was really hard. My final job in Manhattan was working at La Esquina, the corner in Espanol, right? Is this iconic, amazing place, right? And they took over this sort of like blue collar like sandwich kind of like stand, Subway like stand.
Gotcha.
Like you can picture like back in the day a factory worker bellying up on the side of the road kind of thing.
Gotcha. Okay.
And they sort of built this like secret restaurant downstairs, and that's where the fine dining Mexican was. Upstairs was sort of the taco shop. And it was just chaos. And they had a little cafe on the other side of the building. And we were so busy. And we had like, and it's funny because in Florida, like there's always too much space. Like everybody always plans for like, oh, well, we could just put this here. And like, we could just have more space and more space. And like, so like a lot of times in Florida, like things aren't that efficient.
Yeah.
Because like things are like too far away, right? Like if you're a cook, like you got to like walk all the way over there, right? Like, whereas like, in this instance, it was literally the smallest.
So I was thinking,
space. I mean, like it was just insane. And we would do so many people a day, and then the taco shop was just open like all day from like 11 to like basically 12 at night or something like that. But the fancy restaurant was only open from like 6 to 10 or something. We served food, or 11, and that we had like all the celebrities coming in, like the Matt Damons and Scarlett Johanssons, and all these people. Right,
that's
like,
pretty cool.
Yeah, we had all these people, and what was cool is we made them come through the kitchen every time.
Okay.
The way that you walked in is you walked literally like right through the kitchen.
Okay.
Which is like, probably we were probably breaking rules.
Just a couple of health laws. It's all good.
Yeah. I don't know if it was health laws. It was probably like fire code or something.
Yeah. Right.
But it was just always, and by the way, Matt Damon was really nice. He came back and he was like, "Oh, guys, thanks guys." And that was great. And, it was really nice to everybody. It was really nice.
That was going to be my next question.
When Leonardo DiCaprio came in, he came in, and he was like with all this, Victoria's Secret models and like all these other guys he's with. And I sent them out this like tuna tail that was like on fire. And he didn't even raise his head. He didn't even notice it. But I can imagine that would be the case, because like if people are always like looking at you to see if you're sitting there, you're just like doing your thing every day, right? And everyone around you is staring at you, like you don't want to like raise your eyes, because if you like catch your eyes with somebody else, then all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, he's looking at me," So, but I did my best to try to get his attention, but it didn't really work.
That's crazy to have that, celebrity superstars now, in there.
Like it didn't really feel like that. I worked with like 80 Latinos there, and we had, it was like.
Did you learn to get Spanish doing that?
Oh yeah,
I'm sure.
And that was the fun, right? It was like me and this like gang of pirates, men and women, and like we just cooked and worked so hard. Had this great guy that worked for me. Shema is what everybody called him. And he was just great, and he would yell at everybody and get them to do what they're supposed to do. When they were a wise guy to me, he would like start yelling at them in Spanish, because like, who's this big gringo telling me what to do type of thing. But it was a blast. And the celebrity thing just became secondary. It wasn't
sure.
It wasn't even a thing. You're in New York and you always have celebrities around. Like
it's common. Yeah.
Like at a Lily, it was like we had like the Prince of Saudi Arabia there, and Sofia Vergara, right? Like you have like the Clintons came in, that's how New York is, right? And it's just, everybody's just a regular person at the end of the day.
Of course.
But that said, obviously La Esquina has a little bit more of a buzz because of it, and so the environment is like fun and kind of like up, it's like excitement, like it's like everybody's there to have fun, and the women want to look their best, and so it was a good time. At the end of that tenure, it was time to leave, and I was lucky to find the Ponte Vedra Inn Club, and that's how I got down to Florida.
You found that from New York?
Yeah. It was like there was a headhunter and an ad and a thing, and I was gonna come, then they were like, "Oh no, we're gonna do something else," and then finally they're like, "Okay, come do a tasting," and I came. They flew me down, and I did a tasting for them, and I think I did well in the tasting, and that's why they hired me, I guess. But yeah, it was fun. It was a good tasting. I gave them like another thing on fire. It was basically like a plate of like burnt vegetables like on fire, and then in the middle of the table. And so you can imagine it's like the president the president of Gate Hospitality, the person who's in charge of the guest relations, the head chef there, all these people, that I send them down this big plate of burnt vegetables, and I then give them a little, and I told them just hey, it's just there, just don't touch it, and then I gave them a little bite of something else in between, and then while they're eating that little bite, I took the plate back from them, the smoking plate of vegetables, and I cleaned them and made them in, when you take off all the burnt part, it's just cooked vegetable, right? And then just made like a nice little delicate salad. I think they liked that. I think that's what got them.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
It sounds like you have just been through a whirlwind of life. You know what I mean? Like, just sitting here listening to this story, it's amazing. Like, you have me enthralled.
47 years, man. 47 years. Yeah. No.
But what would you say was one of the hardest parts about being, obviously I know, like you said, low money for a little while there, having to go through the trenches and making it to where you are today. What would you say was the most difficult part of your journey through that?
I would say that I lucked out and had a great partner in life, and I found her young. So she also, like how you temper eggs, you add a little bit of hot liquid into the egg and you temper it, you get it a little bit warmer before you add all of the boiling cream in. Mm-hmm. So she basically had been tempered. Okay, so she had gotten used to me and gotten used to my bad schedules. And when we were younger, it wasn't a problem because I would see her late at night, and it was a good deal. But when you have kids, things change. It makes it more difficult. But she was always there, so I never had to question that part of my life. I never had to worry about that, and that's the hard thing about doing my profession is there is a certain amount of commitment and passion that goes into the path that I took. You always can go and work for a hotel or Aramark or one of these other things where it's more about management, and it's not necessarily. They'll probably yell at me somewhere about this, but it's not necessarily about the food itself. And when I say the food itself, I mean it's like paying attention to the little things. Mm-hmm. How you cut something is how it enters someone's mouth, and how they chew it is kind of like how they mix it in their mouth. And and those little things,
it plays a part.
Play a part in it, right? That's just one example of something that nobody else thinks about, right? And so. It was, it was, I was just always passionate about it, and I always paid attention to it, and I always cared about it. And so that's kind of like your train track, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Right. And then if you have a good, engine attached to you, which is, you know, a good wife or partner, you know, that always makes it easier, right? Because then you don't have to worry about that aspect of life.
Yeah, and that's a big part.
You know, you still, I mean, because, you know, you're not having to go, oh, I need to find this partner, and then you're like, oh, I found this one amazing partner, and then you know, you're like, oh, she's like, oh, let's go out on Saturday night, and you're like, no, I can't, I gotta work. Okay, then how about Friday night? I gotta work. Oh, what are you doing for the holidays? I want to go back and see my family. Well, I gotta work.
Yeah,
right. Like if you know, so it makes it hard. It's really hard to be a female chef because, like, I mean, these days, thank God, you know, we're becoming a little more woke, and we now have paternity leave, which is amazing, right? Like,
yeah.
how great is that for guys everywhere? You know, that's like, you know, that's who's the Supreme Court justice that died? The woman there.
I don't remember that name.
Jeez, I can't.
Shan, you want to look that up real quick? But like, to your story there, you know, talking about the busy schedule and everything.
Yeah.
That's where, like, I kind of found out early about her is, like, I was working 2 jobs 7 days a week for a year and a half to make ends meet. You know, like obviously holidays, I had Christmas off and all that, but 7 days a week I was working. I had to pay bills, had to pay rent, had to get all this.
Yeah, Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Thank you, sweetheart.
When she was like suing, she was like, you know, taking on all these cases for, like, you know, sort of like the opposite of sexually harassing women. It was like the opposite of it, right? Or the like, it was like, well, if men can't have this, and, you know, we've got to fight for men to have this so that women can have it, like, or, you know, that type of.
It's an interesting perspective,
right?
It really
like,
is.
So, like, now you have paternity leave for a lot of men, you know, and that's great, right? Like, so, you know, but that said, it's really hard to be a woman chef because you do have that thing where all of a sudden now you have this beautiful baby that you love and is there, you know, and it's like, Mom, where are you? Mm-hmm. And you're like, oh, I'm dealing with this 5-top tonight that is complaining about everything and telling me everything's wrong and you know, like whatever, right? Like just some horrible group of people, and I could be at home with my beautiful child.
Very true.
Right, like it, and so to deal with that is really difficult. Luckily, men, at least my age, have grown up in this sort of world where, like, we somehow get out of thinking about that, even though we probably should.
Yeah.
Right. We get out of that ability to go like for some reason it's like not my responsibility to take care of my child. It's my wife's, right? But that's not really true, right? It's but for some reason that's kind of like how it falls.
It's I think that's the provider mentality in us.
It's like we're the provider,
exactly.
Right? But, you know, but it is kind of unfair, and, you know, because everybody wants to follow their passion and follow their loves, and you know, women and men, and, you know, I don't know what the answer is, but it just, I know it's difficult. It's just one of those difficult things in life.
It's a balancing
that has to be sort of navigated, and.
Speaking of balancing, though, I did want to bring something up as well. You brought us some amazing food, by the way. I was wondering if I was going to try your hummus here. I wanted to see if you could describe to the audience what you brought here, and I would love to try it live.
Well, we brought you a hummus with spicy chicken, right?
Photo of that. Yeah.
So hummus is basically chickpeas, right? Mm-hmm. Hummus B tahini is chickpeas with tahini. Mm-hmm. And that's what everybody in America knows as.
It looks delicious,
just plain old hummus, right? So when you go to a Lebanese restaurant, they'll do stuff where they have the hummus and then they put like pine nuts and butter on the inside, or they'll put ground lamb. And so this is sort of our homage to that, and it's sort of it's blackened chicken, and it's mixed up with onions and tomatoes and scallions, and it's like almost kind of like, you know, taco meat in a way, and it's put right in the middle of the hummus, and you can like dip and eat it. You know,
excuse my language. This is fucking delicious. This is very, very good. I was saying, this is yummy.
It's definitely craveable. I also brought you, like, we just had Bryant Nolan.
That sandwich was delicious.
This big football player guy do a nice thing for us, and, you know, he showed some interest, and, you know, he'd gotten hurt. We sent him some food, and he came in, and he was like dying to put a sandwich on the menu. So So I was like, all right, man, well, let's make some sandwiches, and you decide which one you like. And so he came in and he made them with me, and then we chose 2 sandwiches because they're both so good. So we brought you the spicy Big Nolan, and it's basically 2 ground chicken patties, 2 slices of American cheese, gluten-free bread, and sautéed onions, jalapenos, mayo, and some green salsa.
It was very, very good.
Yeah, it's pretty delicious. The one that we've had for a while is, we call it the double, which we'll probably get a cease and desist at some point from In-N-Out.
That's what I thought of when you said that. Yeah,
but because it's 2 patties, 2 slices of American cheese, the chicken patty, and then we have lettuce, tomato, and onion. But we also have a slice of green tomato that's been pickled.
Ooh, okay.
And it's really good. It's like that acidity of the green tomato is like perfect. And but really, we opened with big ass salads. Okay, and that's what we're originally about. Big salads. And a while ago, my parents sort of went vegan for a while, right?
Interesting. Okay.
And they were listening to the Forks Over Knives on Netflix, right? And there's this guy, Dr. Furman, and and he talks about mastication, not masturbation, mastication.
Mastication. I got you on that one.
And mastication is like the chewing.
Yes.
Right? And the effort of chewing, right? So part of eating is knowing that you're eating. And a lot of food today is designed to just sort of slide down your belly.
Yeah.
Like if you get like a really sloppy cheeseburger that just sort of like, you eat it in 5 seconds, you've consumed 2,500 calories, and you're like, where did it go? And there's so much stuff like that these days. But if you're an athlete or you like work out at all, and you want to feel like you're eating something that tastes good and feels good, you want to feel full, but you don't want to feel like you just ate
a brick, basically
Chinese buffet
yeah.
or some heavy huge thing, right? So we design these big salads with like tons of ingredients, and so like when you're eating it, you're doing a lot of chewing, and by the time you get done with your salad, you're full. Your jaw's probably tired, but like it's so satisfying, and like even though you're like full, like within 5 minutes you're back to feeling like, okay, I'm good with life, and an hour later you're not going, oh man, I got to go to bed.
You're satiated, but also not dying. You don't feel like death after you ate your meal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we have the wonderful. We brought you the salmon, sweet potato, blueberry. It was like a. Shannon's
giving her nod of approval over there. She says she really liked it.
It's good. 5 to 6 ounce piece of salmon. These lettuce from Reparation Earth. Roasted sweet potatoes, blueberries, dry blueberries, tomatoes, avocado, cotija cheese, and balsamic dressing. That is the only dressing that is like a classic, like oil-based dressing. All the rest are like smoothies. Like we have a dressing called cashew turmeric, and it's basically cashews blended up with flavoring.
Gotcha.
And so there's no oil in it necessarily. So I mean, there's the fat from the cashew, but once again, it's this idea of eating your food.
Yeah.
And like a tablespoon of oil.
You're good.
A tablespoon of oil is like tons of calories.
Yes.
So it's you don't. And you don't even know you eat it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not like not like something heavy that you're like, okay, I'm
like
consuming
people do that
this
thing at the Italian restaurant where they put the oil on the plate with the balsamic dressing and just dip right into it. If they just do, they could probably be done, right? Like that's enough calories
100%
for the whole day.
Fats, right? Everything.
Be done.
I did have one question for you. So I got 2 final questions for you.
Okay.
So for your restaurant, if you brought up the fact like where the word healthy and what was the word, gluten-free.
Yeah.
It's kind of something that scares some people off.
Yeah.
If there's one dish on your, obviously I'm sure there's, from everything I've tried, there's 3 dishes here I've tried that are delicious so far. If someone's maybe a little bit on the fence, what would you think would be a safe thing for them to try that you think that these people would like?
So we recognize that pretty quickly, and also strangely enough, like Northeast Florida gets cold. Which, who would have thought that coming down from New York, right? You just don't even think about it, right? And so it was like the dead of cold, and we're like, we've got to add something that's like warm and hot. So that's when we started adding a rice entree.
Okay.
And so we have a chicken and broccoli, like I described before. That's just it. Everybody loves it. It's just it hits with that ginger and just. You crave it, and we have chili crunch that we make, which is just delicious.
I love a good chili crunch.
Yeah, like crunchy garlic and shallots with chili, and it's now that one is a gut buster. That one's like the classic gut buster. The same way the double is a classic gut buster. Like anybody who wants to go to Five Guys could come there and have the spicy Big Known or the sweet Big Known or the double, and wouldn't think anything of it. The bread, you have no idea that it's not or full of gluten.
I didn't.
You know what I mean?
I tried that before we even started talking about this. I wouldn't have been. I can't tell the difference. It tasted delicious. Everything was very. And like you brought up the mouthfeel, like you were talking about that there. I feel like that really is a big thing because I feel like a lot of foods nowadays, like you were talking about, like go to McDonald's or whatever burger place you think of, you bite into it and it just turns into mush.
Yeah.
You don't really like taste the layers of like the cheese, the meat, the toppings, and everything. It just kind of goes. Yeah, and that's it.
Yeah.
It's like,
I mean, it's now the one thing I would say about gluten-free bread is its ability to handle weighty ingredients is limited, right? Like, so if there's a lot of juice and a lot of liquid, it's best to eat it right away.
Understandable.
Because it doesn't have that gluten in it, and gluten holds the bread together, right? Like, it makes it like stretchy like pasta, right?
Exactly.
So that would be the one downfall of not having gluten in your bread. But we had a couple that came today that the woman was had celiac disease, and just like the guy that comes in that's gonna eat that double and could give 2 shits, like he just wants like big guy food and like classic man food, right? He's number one. He's gonna eat it. He's going to taste that pickled green tomato and go, oh, man, what just happened? And he's going to be like, oh, but I kind of like it. And, but he's going to be kind of thrown off for a second, but he's going to like it, right?
Yeah.
And now he's like, his mind's open, right? Like his mind's like, he's like a new person, right? And, and the same token, he doesn't have to care about it, right? Whereas this poor woman who's got celiac disease, she comes in there and she just has like the safety and the reassurance of knowing that nothing in that restaurant besides a canned beer has gluten. Yeah. And so it's just like we have 2 beers on tap that are gluten free. We have cider, and we have from Congaree and Penn, and like a hard cider on tap, and then a rosé on tap. Ooh. And so that's what we have on tap, and then we have some canned beers, and we have the Liquid Death, all the flavors.
You got the Liquid Death waters and everything.
Water,
hell yeah!
And but yeah, like honestly, like you could bring a whole family of diverse eaters to McFLAMINGO, and everybody could find something that they would like, or could remove whatever they wanted to remove that they were scared of. But man, like life is short. Like you should be tasting everything in life.
Try it out.
Try it all out. God forbid you're 80 years old and you haven't had a double, man.
That's right. I definitely agree.
If you're on your deathbed and you haven't had spicy chicken hummus, like what have you been doing?
Absolutely delicious. Like when you brought up the hummus part, that's right down my alley. I've always been a big hummus fan. And thank you for your time today, man. I have one final question for you before I let you go. And it's anytime it's someone who is new on the podcast, I always ask this question. Yeah. And it is, excuse me, I'm messing up my final question here, Shannon. This is a very rare moment. And it is, do you feel successful? And if you do or do not, in what ways?
Okay, so that's kind of like, a question that probes into my, my mental state, which is, slightly psychotic. But I think in general, you don't ride a bike across country and spend this many years cooking in a kitchen and continue to do it and then open 2 restaurants if you feel successful. You basically are going, I haven't succeeded yet. I haven't done it yet. I haven't finished. I haven't done what I wanted to do. I haven't made enough, difference in the world. I think I can do better. I think I can do more. And that's just kind of how I feel. I do, I just have always felt like I'm not succeeding and that I need to do more. And it's probably, I can definitely it's hard to even, it's hard to even just think like, oh, what a wonderful day. You know what I mean? I got to tell myself like, oh, wow, I'm really fortunate. I'm really lucky. I've had a lot of people be very nice and good to me, and that's helped me along the way. And, I'm very fortunate to have, the customers that we have. I'm very fortunate to have my family and all these things. It's hard to take that in and like really appreciate it. And sometimes when you work the way, we work in our industry, it's kind of like a drug in a way that keeps you from having to think about that question, and you're able to just be like, I got this onion to chop, and I'm going to chop this onion, and then I'm going to cook it. And then after I cook it, I got a whole bunch of other stuff I got to cook and do and chop and whatever and put together, and I'm making a menu. And, so it's kind of like that idle hands thing,
The devil's playground, yeah.
Yeah, so I'll say this, is that for the first time in my life, I've been thinking like, man, like instead of going like, oh man, what's going to happen in the future? What am I going to do? What am I going to create? Now I'm kind of thinking, oh man, I can't wait till I can get a flip phone and I can no one's calling me with problems. And then I can just relax every day. I think maybe retire, that'd be nice, right? Not going to happen for another 40 years, but I can look forward to something, right?
Yeah.
And in 40 years from now, I'll be, pretty old. I'll be 87 or something.
You'll still be looking young, my man. You'll be all good.
Yeah, I'm hoping.
But no, I feel like what you said is very sage advice. I'm the same way as well. Like, talking to Shannon here, she's seen me, go from, working different types of jobs to doing something. And for me, I'm very much one of those people, if I just sit here, that's where depression comes in. I feel like I'm not doing enough. Yep. I feel like I need to do more, you know. That's actually how this started, funny enough, was me I got tired of coming home and just sitting there and death scrolling on my phone, not doing anything. And it got to the point where it was like, I'm not doing anything in my community. I want to be more involved in my community. I want to meet more people because I am a strong believer of your network is your net worth. Yeah. And, it's not like I'm looking for anything besides people's time, but it's very much a big thing. And the success part, I'm kind of the same way where I feel like I'm successful on my family side of things. Yeah. But, I feel like I could always be doing more to push everything. And to always
be doing more of everything.
I agree.
I mean, the cool thing about Jacksonville, I will say, after having been around a lot of places, is that Jacksonville has room for people like you. It has room for people like me. We might not be the most rich. We might not be the most famous, but we're able to get in and play and do what we want to do. And in New York, you don't quite feel that way, right? Like there's
a lot of stuff going on there.
You need like $6 million just to open up a crappy little restaurant. You know what I mean? It's like crazy there. So, here is a lot more. It's a lot more achievable. The American dream is still more achievable in Jacksonville than most places. And what's great is that you see people like yourself and like June and Josh with Fat Boy Fried Rice.
Shout out to the boys.
Yeah, and I really like the guy over at what's it called? Rue St. Mark. He does really good food over there, and he's got a team there that seems to really care. I don't get out enough and eat enough, but I've had a couple good meals there. Like there's people that are really trying. Like Al's Pizza. That guy has been doing it for years, and come on. I mean, like this, like that's like what our community is about. Like people like him, people like the Grishels. Nick, actually, the son, worked for me at the club for a minute.
Whoa.
Really nice kid. He opened that AB Kitchen over in Atlantic Beach.
ABBQ?
AB Kitchen.
Oh, okay.
AB
Okay, I got you.
And he's one of those kids that just is cooking and loves it and cares and wants to make good food and make people happy and so it's like those types of things that the fact that the Jaguars don't necessarily win all the time is kind of nice. The tickets are still cheap, right?
For right now, until that stadium goes up.
The stadium goes up, and then none of us can afford to go there. But hopefully they keep them somewhat reasonable.
But the one thing I feel like there's a missing part of the story is the way of you have rubbed off on people as well. You have two guys who are successful food truck owners now who say that you helped push them into that point.
Yeah, I mean, I've always said to people that my only goal for them is to leave me. I want them to go on and do great things. I do my best with them. I show them what I know. I give them what I try to care. I want them to care as much as me. I can't force people to care. Some people get that and they take that stuff from me. I got another kid that worked for me. His name's Gabriel Lawyer. And he works in New York now. He's a sous or a chef de cuisine of a Michelin-starred restaurant.
Whoa!
Another girl, Rachel Cooper. She works as I think she's chef de cuisine or something, or executive sous chef of this guy. This guy Gabriel. What's his name? I forget his name, unfortunately, at the moment, but he has the restaurant's called Coleman, and that also has a million different accolades, and everybody loves it, and she's killing it out there. So like we have alumni from Jacksonville that are going off into the real world and doing big things. Hopefully they all come back, and hopefully I make enough money at McFLAMINGO that I can somehow fund their dreams here to come back someday. But that'd be my ultimate goal, to be able to like help people see the dreams that they want to dream come true.
That just gave me goosebumps. I'll say I think that's a beautiful thing, man, and you're doing it. You're making people want to go chase their dreams and help them continue that. And then, you're seeing the fruits of their labor. You see these guys start off with the one food truck, make their way up to going to being the higher up chefs. I think it's a beautiful thing.
I got a great sous chef working for me now at the club, Dale Severson. He's amazing. He works really hard. I got these two young guys. One guy's a Ukrainian chef, and you gotta support Ukraine. He's this kid. He's not a kid. He's an adult. He's 40 years old or something. But
he's 40 years
old.
We're
all kids. I think of myself,
that's funny.
I think of myself as a kid, but man, he's got so much passion. He came in. He started making pierogies with us. He started making these things called sirniki that we like. We've done stuff to like make them turn into new cool like fine dining things.
That's really cool.
They're like, yeah, like it's great. And this other guy, Peter, he's come. He came in and he's got like he's just every day working hard trying to come up with new dishes, and I got to constantly tell him, dude, less is more, less is more. But it's like when you're like all excited like that, you just want to show all your tricks.
Oh yeah,
you want to just always show all your tricks, everything right away. And sometimes you just got to take it easy.
Sometimes less is more.
Yeah, less is more. Less is more is funny.
I think it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, and this isn't your only, invite ever. If you ever have something new going on, or if you just want to come back and shoot the breeze, man, I love this. This is a very eye-opening and interesting conversation.
Yeah, we'll come by to McFLAMINGO, and
hey, I'll come by, man.
You'll see us there, and and hopefully some other people come visit us too.
Hell yeah. So guys, make sure you guys go visit him at McFLAMINGO's. Also, you guys can see him at the club as well. I'm sure he'll be around there. Make sure you guys go give him a follow on social media. If you guys go and you guys listen to our show and actually decide to go over there from listening to this podcast, tag him on social media, tag me on social media. I love to see when our community here at the Who Are You is going out and supporting local Jacksonville and our guests that we have on there.
If you order, you put your email in and you give us your email, we'll have it, and we are always sending out discounts and stuff like that. So, but we need your email. So,
guys, make sure you give them that email, get those discounts and everything, and go try amazing food, y'all. You just saw me try this live on the podcast. I tried some other stuff before we even started doing the interview. Everything is absolutely amazing, and it gives you options. Everybody is always, a little bit about different stuff, but go out there, try a new restaurant, and go support local Jacksonville. People who are working hard, bringing you different kinds of food than maybe you've ever tried before, or also trying a new spin on something you have tried in the past. So make sure you guys go give them a follow, go try out their food, tag them on social media, tag me on social media. And before we get out of here, if you guys want to give us a follow on our social media, it's going to be Who Are You Pod, at Who Are You Pod, from everything from Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, all the normal spots. And also, if you guys know someone who has a story that needs to be told, or you have a story that needs to be told, make sure you guys hit us up on either social media, or you can email us. It's going to be whoareyoupod@yahoo.com, and maybe we'll have you guys on a future episode. But as I say every week, y'all, thank you so much for taking the time to listen. Thank you so much for sitting down with me today. Thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and we'll see you guys next week.